Today's episode of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market for your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home. Not in the United States? No worries there either, as they will ship to you international fans as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good evening, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Tuesday, June 25th. I am your host, Michael Leva. A little bit under the weather today. Got a little bit of a cough, so if I do cough in this show, I do apologize. But I wanted to talk about the big news of the day, which is this report from ESPN and Jeff Darlington, who's obviously very tied into the Miami Dolphins in South Florida and everything happening with the Dolphins, that he put out on ESPN NFL Live on Tuesday afternoon regarding Tua in a possible long-term contract extension in a new contract form. We have some new information, so I do want to talk about that. But as always, before we get to that, a big shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. And if you are, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, Podchaser, Audible, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We had on Mike Florio last week. We had on Jaylen Waddle over the weekend. And I'm going to work on a few more guests as well. Zig Fracassi from SiriusXM NFL Radio was on yesterday. Check him out as well. Okay, this Jeff Darlington report of ESPN is this. He is reporting Miami is not offering Tua a market contract on par with Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence. It's not in the ballpark financially of what Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence got. Jeff also believes that Jordan Love, the quarterback for the Packers, will get a contract before Tua, which will raise the market of what quarterbacks are being paid even more than it is now. Jeff went on to say he is less optimistic than he's previously been regarding Tua getting a new contract with the Dolphins. He's not saying it won't get done. He's just saying his optimism is scaled back and he's less optimistic that something will happen. And so before we dive into this, let me just throw this out there. I know a lot of fans of the Miami Dolphins who live on social media live in a bubble, and they like to block out any negative news or any news that they don't agree with, and they like to just, yell at the reporters, call them names, and you get all in your feelings. I understand that. Jeff Darlington is as legitimate as they come. And when he reports something on the Dolphins, take it very seriously, because he usually is not wrong. And you also have to understand this. A contract with Tua is not like a contract with Waddle. It's not like a contract possibly with someone like Wilkins or Hunt or Javon Holland or Jaylen Phillips. This is hundreds of millions of dollars. And a misstep here in this type of contract, it will set the organization back, not just 1 year, not just 2 years, multiple years if it's wrong and it's not correct, which will, make the organization moving forward in the near future uncompetitive. And that's what you need to avoid and protect yourself against. So it's not a black and white issue. It's not a right or wrong issue. There's a gray area here, which I'm about to jump into. So everyone just, take a breather. If some of this stuff, if you just love your quarterback, and I get it, but there's a reality to this. And there's two sides to this story. Let's start off with Miami side. Tua wants a market contract. He's looking at the contracts that Jared Goff got, Trevor Lawrence got, and what Jordan Love might be getting here soon. Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl with the Rams. He went to an NFC title game last year with the Lions. Has Tua done that? Answer is no. Trevor Lawrence won his division, and he won a playoff game. Has Tua done either one of those things? The answer is no. Jordan Love was outstanding last year in the playoffs, played in a couple games, won one. Has Tua had a moment like that, or a playoff moment like that, and won a playoff game? The answer is no. Results matter. You cannot ignore results and pay someone hundreds of millions of dollars based on blind hope and feelings. And I know some of you out there going, well, Jacksonville did that with Lawrence. Yeah, but they got a couple results they can hang their hat on. Okay, you might not agree, but that's what they're hanging their hat on, is we're going to see more of that, what he did that year, than what we saw from him last year and in other years. And then you have to factor in injuries. And I know guys like Jared Goff has gotten injured, Lawrence has gotten injured, players get injured. But all injuries are not created equal. And when it comes to head injuries with Tua, those are vastly different than a broken bone, a pulled muscle, a pulled hamstring. It's night and day. A pulled muscle, you break your leg, you get a knee injury. Those are normal football injuries that a lot of players go through, they recover from, especially today with the science and the medicine, and you can rebound from relatively well. Head injuries can send players into retirement. There's an extra level of risk. So that's Miami's side here, probably why they're not offering him a market level contract right now. And they're well within the right not to, but that's their side that they're probably entrenched on. Then there's Tua's side. And Tua's not wrong either, because he has he has some valid points on his side. Tua said at the mandatory OTAs, the market is what the market is. And he is not wrong. If Miami waited too long, that's not his problem. The Dolphins played their last game, the second week of January? They could have gotten this done January, February, March, April, May, and now we're in June, head into July. It's not his fault the Dolphins didn't get him paid prior to Lawrence and Jared Goff. And now that the market's changed, and it might be changing again with Jordan Love, who from this report will have a new deal before Tua, that's not his problem. That's a Miami Dolphins problem. So Tua is, he's a little bit right here. And here's the other point. If Miami is sending Tua lowball offers, which we don't know that they are, but from this report, if it's not a market deal on par or close in the ballpark with Jared Goff or Trevor Lawrence, if they're signing him lowball offers, I know why Tua is not accepting the offer. I do not blame him. Okay. So there's two sides here. And we do not know as fans, as people from the outside, which side is, in the right, so to speak. I know it's not a right or wrong issue, but there's a gray area here and there's a lot of moving parts. So this might get messy. And at the end of the day, Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel and Mr. Ross value Tua Tagovailoa at a certain amount. And they are in the building every day with him. We are not. So if you, as Joe fan, want to throw flowers at Chris Grier for his drafting and the way he works the salary cap, Chris Grier's cooking. I hear it all the time. Chris Grier's cooking. And you want to throw him flowers for the roster he has built the past 2 or 3 years, then you cannot knock him here, as you have to have that same faith in him that he knows what he's doing with the starting quarterback position. So that's where it is. If you don't trust them and what they are saying, that's where there is a disconnect. And by them, I mean fans not believing the reporters and thinking it's all wrong. And, I just want to see just pay my favorite player. I want to see him play quarterback. I got my number 1 jersey I bought a few years ago. I wear it to all the games every Sunday, even when I'm at home watching the game. And those fans just love going on social media and telling off Mike Florio and telling off Chris Sims and telling off Stephen A. Smith. And anytime they even throw a little criticism almost to the point now it's a game. It's not even like an honest debate because it's like toxic positivity. We only want to hear positive things. If you're one of them, if you're one of those people who just want the Dolphins to cave and pay Tua and give him what he wants, that's fine. You are entitled to have that opinion. You are well within your right to have that opinion. But do not get mad in a year or two when Javon Holland and or Jaylen Phillips are not on the roster anymore because Miami gave a deal and overpaid Tua, and they no longer have the salary cap space to keep a Javon Holland or a Jaylen Phillips, and the quarterback is tying up so much of the salary cap they can't field a competitive roster in 2026, 2027, whatever, moving forward. You can't have it both ways. Actions have consequences. And yes, this might get messy. I don't know if it will, but this report, it seems like, I think for the longest time, fans of the Dolphins, myself included, have said, from all the reporting we've heard from Jeff Darlington and various others who are tied into Miami and know the key people involved and that scene, is that, it's taken longer than normal, but we expect it to get done in the summer prior to camp. We expect it to get done prior to week 1 of the season, worst case scenario. Well, this report throws cold water on all that old reporting. This is new information, new reporting from a guy who does not miss, who is very good. So, yes, this might get messy. Tua may hold out if nothing is done prior to camp. He may do a sit-in where he shows up, runs a couple laps, and while they're doing 7-on-7s, while they're doing 11-on-11s, Mike White is QB1, and Tua is sitting on the exercise bike just riding the bike. And he is well within his right to do that. But again, actions have consequences. And if he were to do something like that, if a running back does that, if an edge rusher does that, if a safety does it, a corner like Xavier Howard or Christian Wilkins in recent years, not the end of the world, because you don't really need to be involved in those type of drills to get ready for week 1. If a quarterback does it, I'm not sure you can be called a leader. And I think that is more of a reflection on him than it is a team. It's just different with a quarterback, and if fans just don't like that, it's a double standard. It is. You want the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. It just is. You can't act like the rest of the players on the team when it comes to stuff like this. But it might get messy. I don't know. I think we're all hopeful it's not going to get messy. I think we're all hopeful something will get resolved. And I do think at the end of the day, something will get resolved at the latest before week 1. Because as I said, I think it was on the show with Mike Florio, or maybe it was a week before or a few days before with Ian Berger on the show I did with him in the Mailbag show. The Dolphins don't have strong ownership. You can say what you want about Mr. Ross. And Mr. Ross off the field, when it comes to Rise and paying to fix up the stadium and all the renovations there, the F1 racetrack, the tennis courts, and what he's done in the community to raise money and help out various charities, A+. Awesome. He's hit it out of the park on all those things. But when it comes to the on-the-field product, for all the years he's been here, which is now, 14 years or so. I think we're going on close to 20 here in a few years if he holds on to the team for all that time. It's been a failure. And the Dolphins usually cave. They just do. They don't like bad press around their players. They don't like bad press around the organization. And eventually, they don't have the backbone to stand up and sort of take the heat. They usually cave. It doesn't matter who the general manager is. If it's under Mr. Ross, they usually cave. And I think eventually, if Tua and his agents wait them out, and waiting them out, it will be messy. It will be uncomfortable. Every day he does a media session in training camp, you will be asked about this. Other players on the team will be asked about this. It will be a media circus for the entire training camp. It will be the lead story, every night on the NFL Network. If there's any shows left on the NFL Network, I don't even know. On ESPN, First Take, FS1. Every quarterback in his class has gotten paid. Hurts got paid. Joe Burrow's got paid. Justin Herbert's got paid. Lawrence was drafted after him. He got paid. Now you're getting Jordan Love, who was drafted the same year as Tua as well. Jeff's saying he's going to get paid. Jared Goff's getting paid for the second time. They're all getting paid. And when this one guy's not getting paid, and he led the NFL in passing last year, that's a story. You might not want it to be a story, and you might not want to hear it every day, but you cannot get on the media for talking about this and reporting on this. This is a story. It's a real story. If this continues, we're not there yet, till late July. The first day of training camp was July 23rd, I think, somewhere around there, 23rd, 24th. If we get there and nothing's done, welcome to the Miami Dolphins Media Circus 2024, because it will be a question asked of every player, and we'll see how it goes. Again, I think we're all hopeful. No matter what you think about Tua, I know some fans, don't like him and don't want him back. I get it, and you bring up valid points, but it's probably best for the organization to come up with a reasonable deal, pay him, have control of him for a few years, and not in unreasonable amounts. Obviously, you don't want to overpay him and be tied into him for 4 or 5 years where you can't move on financially. And then in a year or two, he has another injury, or he's just not very good, or you're stuck in the same spot that you are now of really not winning the AFC, not winning playoff games. That's not good. So, oh man, my cough is coming back. I better wrap this up. So that's the latest news. That's the latest report. We'll see where this goes. But yeah, this is new information. And I know, look, it is what it is. And I think Miami probably waited a little too long and the market got out of control and it got out of their reach. And now they're trying to rein it back in. And if you're Tua, I don't know. You obviously want a market deal and you also want long-term security, but you also know if you're on the open market, there's a team. And there's always one team. It might be the Raiders next year. They don't even have a quarterback right now. There's a lot of teams out there who would, upgrade and take Tua and pay him that 50, 55, 56 million per year and pay him 210, 225 million of fully guaranteed money. Those teams do exist. There might not be a ton of them, but it only takes one. So Tua's agent's telling him, sit tight. You're going to get your money. But there is a level of risk involved. Tua's got to go out there. He's got to stay healthy again. He's got to prove he, doesn't have to lead the NFL in passing yards, but he has to have another solid season, lead them to the playoffs, and he'll get paid. And if the Dolphins put on a franchise tag, that's going to hinder their chances of signing Holland and or Jaylen Phillips moving forward. So they have to think long and hard about that. It's in both sides' best interest to get something done. But we know with this stuff, ego comes into play. And we'll see what happens here in the next month or so. What happens. So everyone, be sure to check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com. Also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads at DolphinsTalk, and also on TikTok as well at DolphinsTalk. Our Military Fan of the Year contest. If you are a fan of the Dolphins and you either have served in the military or are serving in the military now, go to our website, go to our social media channels, click on the 2024 Dolphins Talk Military Fan of the Year. Send in a submission. You got a couple weeks left. And you can enter to win 2 tickets to a game, a parking pass, and a $100 Visa gift card if we pick you to win. And if you're sitting there saying, oh, I never win anything, oh, I'm not going to win, so I'm not going to enter, please don't, because we've had a lot of previous winners over the past 3 or 4 years who have said that, and they've won. You do not know, you can't get in our minds of myself and Ian and Tom and Josh and Aaron of who should win these. So please submit an entry, tell us what game you want to go to, give me a couple sentences why you should win. If you've served in the military or if you are currently serving, it's only for home games. So don't tell me a road game. It's only for home games. And yeah, you might win. We've done this now for 3 or 4 years. You can watch the videos of us telling the previous winners. We'd like to support the military here at our website. So check it out if you would qualify to submit an entry. Everyone have a great Tuesday evening. Have a great Wednesday. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.